Welcome to my presentation. My name is Mark Parrish, and I'm going to be giving an executive protection analysis along with cybersecurity analysis and other digital forms of security. And I'm going to explain the differences and the similarities and why they're both just as important. Security analysis briefing. So here are a few points I'm going to cover throughout the presentation that I feel were the most important. Uh, the differences between physical security and digital security, which varies in training, it varies in skill set, and education. Why analysis is essential to security and how it's used in everything for improvement. Uh, this is the reason we have new operating systems, new softwares updating constantly, why we have patches for video games updating constantly, because that can also be a security breach when there are hackers there as well. And analysis helps us to not make the same mistakes again or let the same breaches occur, but to also work toward a better future and contributing to the future technology and its evolution. The internet security and how it directly affects executive protection due to the knowledge of me finding it out in the end and reading many different sources that show that certain things are similar with them and that they do have the overall same goal, which is to protect. And how technology has created new threats while solving old threats. Physical security is something physical. Physical security is the protection of a person. It could be hardware with people's privacy on it. It could be credit card records that are stored on some type of backup. And these are the things that are physical forms that need to be protected with the physical security I mentioned. Digital and internet security is a bit different in its form, which is to our browsers, which we use our computers, our operating systems on which our computers operate, the softwares in which they run and work with, and these constantly need to be evolved and changed in order to stay not just only relevant and is what is covered in the media, but also the safety of everyone, because everyone has their personal information on computers now, and they need to be protected now more than ever. Training criteria. Physical security and cybersecurity have certain similarities. The one main one that I want to include on this list is prevention and protection. Now, prevention and protection varies in its use for each profession, but it's still just as valuable. Prevention and protection could be preventing someone from being attacked in the first place. Perhaps someone's protecting a celebrity in the physical world, and they want to prevent them getting attacked or causing distress. That is the best outcome, is to prevent something from happening. And protection, ensuring the protection of those individuals is key, and it's the overall goal of both sides, regardless of their differences from here on out. Unarmed combat is a very valuable one for physical security and not so much for cyber. Cyber physical hand-to-hand combat is not happening, and hence the differentiation of the terms. But in the real world with people protecting celebrities, I've seen in videos, I'm sure everyone else has, that there are a lot of issues that can happen spontaneously before even a firearm is drawn. Maybe a punch is thrown or a kick or a shove or something that's disrupting, and unarmed combat needs to be trained. Firearm training correlates with my first point and second point, in that firearms, sometimes a situation can be resolved with a firearm and that unarmed combat could not solve. And that is when firearm training with a handgun or something mobile is going to be ideal for physical security and not so much in the cyber world. Medical. These are just building blocks. The medical builds on both of the combat, where there is combat and where there is assault or gunshot or someone's hurt. Medical always follows up in any situation. Task description. The descriptions of physical security and cybersecurity, I feel those are similar because each one has its own analysis and its own plan to resolve a conflict or to describe it in a way that physical and cyber would understand together or separate. And counter surveillance is something to where if someone is trying to tap into another camera physically or tampering with something, or is causing a crime or is about to cause a crime that seems suspicious, counter surveillance is key in the physical world, literally following someone with and counter surveillancing them to figure out what their intentions are, and if they cause a crime, it's documented. Moving on to cybersecurity, we have prevention and protection, which, as I mentioned, is the overall goal between any form of security, but in these two, I wanted to put them together. Cyber forensics, just as there's forensics in the physical world, there's cyber forensics, which is the study of causing what happened with the breach, how can we resolve it, did they leave any kind of trace of what they used. Cyber law. There are their own laws, which is a gray area right now, but is currently being worked on because the internet is still a relatively new thing as far as law is concerned, and there are laws that differentiate vastly from the physical security and cyber. Cyber crimes also are going to build on the law, as there are crimes that can be committed online, such as well, identity theft could be done in a physical or cyber sense, but they are done in completely different ways. One is obtaining it in real life, bumping into someone or scanning, and the other one being right over the computer during maybe a sale or something like that. Then the cyber crimes can differentiate, and they're unique in their own fields. Cloud computing, Microsoft and Microsoft's the main one, but cloud, everyone saves to a cloud rather than physical media. But they're both still just as vulnerable in different ways. Cloud computing is still relatively new, and we don't know enough to be able to block every kind of breach. As cloud computing, there are records that show multiple hacks into the clouds of people's information, and the companies that do get hit with this, they do look further into finding a resolution, but wish they would have had preventative protection before, but it's still relatively new. And same with cyber crime fix techniques, as they each have their own approach and they all work differently. Effects for finding someone who stole someone's identity is different than finding out who breached a school library or a school database. Communications and their different forms. So oral communication is still relevant in either field, and I've still found situations to where I can't explain something to a certain degree unless it's done in a communicative form. In a presentation format like this, I'm able to express my standpoints and my views differently than on text alone. You also have different other forms, such as a voice call, which you can't see the individual, but you can still hear the points they're trying to come across, and they're similar to body language, how you can see someone give off certain feelings. You can do the same with voice. You know, if it's an upbeat tone, then it's going to be a different scenario, but it's still more information than just text. Person to person and email, they're different forms once again, and when it comes to email, that's still a different kind of form. It's still exclusive, but still needs as much protection as anything else, because confiscated emails would be something that would risk privacy as well. Communication differences and similarities. So cybersecurity has internet connection, and physical security can also be connected to the internet. So I'm not just limiting the internet to everything, as proven right here. Cameras. Let's start with the first one. Cameras. We have the CCTV cameras, which are used in many buildings like UPS or DHS, like in my previous paper. They have the cameras right there and ready. However, they both have different communication purposes and issues. So a physical camera could get vandalized, broken, messed with, and that can interrupt all of the data with the cameras there. So a physical solution has to be put in place to physically protect the camera. As with the opposite of the scope being cyber and internet connections, if a camera is streaming information through multiple devices, which most are now with securities and security rooms, then they can be hacked into without physically being there. They can tap into the stream and literally take over or ride along and view what every other security official is viewing, which can be very, very scary. Security of the camera footage in the cloud and is maintained with security. So the form of storage for camera would be with the cyber, would be with storing it in a cloud and protecting it that way. As with a physical dilemma that would need to be protected, media storage may be on flash drives, disks, or massive networks, then those are going to have different securities in place. Hack vulnerability is the vulnerability that they have to work on the cyber end of that issue, and physical theft and vandalism done or confiscation would be able to do that for that. So confiscating one's media, which is stealing, would also be part of the physical theft. Instant message is a good way to get communication to these people, and that would be if I was working under a firm and there was security, I would want to make sure I'm there and I would be notified. And as I mentioned in the lower left, the server will notify the staff and it's protecting. So when a breach is known, if one person knows, they can get that information quickly spread to the other officials working on that security field. Direct communication and private communication channels, whether it be a walkie-talkie, if they're secure, like for a mall, private communication channels and direct communication, eye to eye. If they see someone tampering with the camera, they can directly communicate that because they're there. Technology and its issues. So there are issues with technology. It has its problems, but the goals are still the same, meaning we want protection for everyone and we want to prevent any kind of breach if we can. So they do coexist with the same benefit, and they do benefit one another. As I mentioned before with the hijacking the camera feed, so the physical camera being there, their issues still may blend in with cyber, because if they're protecting the physical camera and it still gets hacked into, they're physically there, but it's still an issue that they need more education on, and they still need this field to work on it. And if they work together, then they're covering each other's weaknesses. You know, because if someone's physically protecting that's their expertise. If someone works with just behind the computer, working on different kind of solutions to hacks, then that is their specialty, and they should work together. And this goes back to the classroom discussion when we had the fields and how they related to each other and how trust must be established, especially on a touchy subject like security. In conclusion, there are many similarities that I've mentioned and discovered upon doing this presentation between cyber and internet security, as well as the executive and physical protections. And I felt the camera explanation was the most accurate one that I could explain. And it shows that they really do contrast with each other and do work off of each other, and we do need both forms. And I can't see a future of us not having both. Even 50 or 100 years from now, I just cannot see how we would be able to live without one or the other. Both securities have different skill sets, as with the firearm explanations, but are necessary for each field because they each have their own problems and solutions and skill sets that correlate with that and work off of that and are made to conform to today's modern crises. New crimes are created with new technologies, and this does tie in with the physical protection because of mobile devices and similar types of technology. So these are used like with everyone else. So everyone has a computer now. So it's, you know, it's much more wide known to have exploits from that, because everyone uses technology in this modern time more than any other generation. And because the technology is there, it's new ground for crimes to be committed, and it's almost an open world and which is what people, I don't think they view it this way, but I've been viewing it in a way of an open world. People can still steal, hack, and take away from other people unsuspectingly, as well as the phishing emails, which people don't know the difference, because when you see an email, everyone gets them, so people can make it look deceiving, just like opening scam mail or answering a bad phone call. So this concludes my presentation. I'm going to post my references here and here. Thank you very much, and this concludes my presentation.